A pinch of black pepper once cost more than silver. Nutmeg could buy a house. Cloves were locked away like state secrets, and a single sack of cinnamon could change a merchant's fortune forever. Today, spices sit quietly on supermarket shelves, scattered across kitchen counters, so ordinary that it's almost impossible to imagine millions of people risking their lives for them. Yet for centuries, these tiny fragments of bark, seeds, berries, and roots reshaped the world. They financed empires, bankrupted kingdoms, inspired impossible voyages across unknown oceans, and sparked some of history's bloodiest conflicts. Entire civilizations rose because they controlled the roots that carried flavor from one side of the planet to the other. Others disappeared when they lost them. But the greatest surprise is that the spice wars were never really about food at all. Long before oil fueled global politics, spices were among the world's most valuable commodities. They flavored bland meals, preserved precious food, masked unpleasant odors, symbolized wealth, and became essential ingredients in medicine, religion, and royal ceremonies. Their rarity transformed them into treasures worth crossing oceans to obtain. This journey begins thousands of years ago, when mysterious lands at the edge of the known world guarded secrets that Europe desperately wanted to uncover. What followed became one of humanity's greatest adventures, an age driven not by gold alone, but by the irresistible pursuit of flavor. Chapter 1. The world's first luxury trade. The story begins long before European explorers dreamed of sailing around Africa. As early as ancient Egypt, spices arrived from distant lands through networks stretching across Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia. Cinnamon appeared in royal embalming rituals. Frankincense and myrrh perfumed temples. Pepper became a luxury reserved for the wealthy. No one in Egypt knew exactly where many of these spices originated. Traders deliberately protected their sources, inventing fantastic stories about giant birds guarding cinnamon nests or deadly serpents protecting spice forests. These myths discouraged competitors while allowing middlemen to charge extraordinary prices. Across the Indian Ocean, experienced sailors already understood seasonal monsoon winds, creating one of history's earliest international trading systems. Indian merchants exchanged textiles, gems, and spices with Arabia, East Africa, and eventually the Roman Empire. Every successful voyage carried not only goods but also ideas, religions, technologies, and cultures. For Rome's elite, pepper became an obsession. Vast quantities flowed into imperial markets despite enormous costs. Roman writers even complained that fortunes were disappearing into India simply to satisfy luxury tastes. But that was only the beginning of humanity's growing addiction to spices. Chapter 2. The secret islands that controlled the world. Hidden among thousands of Indonesian islands lay one of history's greatest natural monopolies. Tiny volcanic islands known today as the Maluku Islands were the world's only source of cloves for centuries. Nearby, the Banda Islands alone produced nearly all of the planet's nutmeg. These isolated islands possessed extraordinary power despite their small size. Merchants traveled thousands of miles to reach them, exchanging porcelain from China, cotton from India, silver from the Middle East, and exotic goods from every corner of Asia. Local communities understood the value of what grew in their forests. Harvesting followed traditions passed through generations, while regional rulers carefully managed trade relationships with foreign merchants. Meanwhile, Europe remained almost completely unaware of where these magical spices truly came from. Venetian and Arab traders dominated the final stages of distribution, multiplying prices at every exchange. By the time nutmeg reached London or Paris, its value had increased many times over. Few Europeans realized they were paying fortunes for products harvested on islands smaller than many modern cities. That ignorance would soon become one of history's greatest motivations for exploration. Chapter 3. When flavor sent ships into the unknown. By the 15th century, European kingdoms were desperate to break the monopoly controlling spice imports. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 complicated traditional trade routes, while growing demand pushed prices even higher. Portugal decided to solve the problem at sea. Prince Henry's maritime initiatives encouraged generations of navigators to map Africa's coastline. In 1498, Vasco da Gama finally reached India by sailing around the Cape of Good Hope, opening a direct maritime route that bypassed many traditional intermediaries. Spain refused to be left behind. Christopher Columbus sailed west, believing he could reach Asia more quickly. Instead, he encountered continents unknown to Europeans. Ironically, one of history's most significant discoveries happened because someone was searching for pepper and cinnamon. A few decades later, Ferdinand Magellan's expedition completed the first circumnavigation of Earth. Although Magellan himself never survived the voyage, one ship returned carrying valuable spices. The cargo alone reportedly covered much of the expedition's enormous costs, proving that spices could justify journeys across the entire globe. Everything was changing. Exploration had become global competition. Chapter 4. The Spice Wars begin. Trade soon gave way to conquest. Portugal established fortified ports across the Indian Ocean, attempting to dominate maritime commerce through military power. Massive cannons defended harbors while armed ships intercepted competitors. Commerce increasingly depended on force rather than negotiation. Soon another challenger emerged. The Dutch Republic created the Dutch East India Company, one of history's most powerful corporations. Unlike ordinary businesses, it could wage war, sign treaties, build fortresses, and govern territories. Its primary target was simple: absolute control of Nutmeg and Cloves. The Banda Islands became the center of ruthless conflict. Local resistance against Dutch monopolies triggered devastating violence in the early 17th century. Much of the native population was killed, displaced, or forced into labor systems that served European commercial interests. The islands producing one of the world's smallest spices became scenes of unimaginable suffering. Meanwhile, England, Portugal, Spain, and the Netherlands competed across Asia, each determined to dominate profitable spice routes. Battles erupted not because spices were necessary for survival, but because controlling them promised extraordinary wealth. However, the darkest chapter was still ahead. Chapter 5. The Price of Monopoly. European powers quickly realized that controlling production mattered more than controlling trade alone. The Dutch guarded nutmeg trees with astonishing intensity. Unauthorized cultivation became a serious crime. Seedlings were destroyed before rivals could smuggle them away. Harvests were carefully monitored, and excess production was sometimes burned simply to keep prices high. One remarkable consequence survives in modern geography. During negotiations ending the Second Anglo-Dutch War, the Dutch secured complete control over the Banda Islands, while the English retained a small island in North America called Manhattan. At the time, nutmeg appeared more valuable than what would later become New York City. Eventually, however, monopolies began to collapse. French and British botanists secretly transported spice plants to colonies across the Indian Ocean and Caribbean. Once cloves and nutmeg could grow elsewhere, exclusive control disappeared. The fortunes built on secrecy slowly dissolved. Nature itself refused to remain confined forever. Chapter 6. How Spices Changed the Modern World. Although the spice wars eventually faded, their consequences transformed history forever. Global navigation accelerated. Accurate maps improved. Shipbuilding evolved rapidly. International finance expanded to support risky overseas ventures. Powerful trading companies laid foundations for modern multinational corporations. Entire colonial empires emerged from commercial ambitions originally centered on spices. Ports developed into global cities. Cultural exchanges introduced new foods, languages, religions, and technologies across continents. Even everyday cooking changed dramatically. Black pepper from India, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from Indonesia, and countless other spices gradually became accessible to ordinary households rather than royal courts alone. Yet this expansion came with enormous human costs. Indigenous communities lost land and autonomy. Forced labor systems spread across colonial territories. Economic inequality deepened as wealth flowed toward European capitals. What began as a search for better flavor ultimately reshaped politics, economics, and human geography on a global scale. Looking back, the spice trade was never simply about making food taste better. It was about scarcity. Whoever controlled rare resources controlled wealth. Whoever controlled trade routes controlled kingdoms. Whoever mastered the oceans controlled history. Spices became the first truly global commodity capable of connecting farmers in Indonesia, merchants in India, sailors in Portugal, bankers in Amsterdam, nobles in France, and consumers across Europe through a single commercial network. The fierce competition for pepper, cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg helped launch the age of exploration, fueled colonial expansion, strengthened early capitalism, and accelerated globalization centuries before the modern world existed. The greatest irony is impossible to ignore. Products once worth fortunes eventually became ordinary ingredients found in kitchens everywhere. Their rarity vanished, but the world they helped create remains unmistakably familiar. Conclusion. Every sprinkle of pepper, every stick of cinnamon, and every pinch of nutmeg carries echoes of voyages across dangerous oceans, forgotten kingdoms, shattered monopolies, and lives forever changed by global ambition. Few everyday ingredients have left such an extraordinary mark on civilization. The next time you season a meal, consider this. If these spices had never existed, would the modern world look anything like it does today?